Good morning, everybody. Okay, we should get started. We've got a full lineup today, so we have to be mindful of our time. I want to make sure we hear from all of our speaking groups, of course, and have a little room for dialogue after. So welcome, my name is Mike McGuire. We have a mostly familiar audience within the room, but we do have some visitors, as I'm noticing, which is a good thing. So thank you all for being here. And I tell my students, of course, we want to have an audience because you want to inspire others to hear your ideas, to potentially act upon them, to tell others about them, and so forth. So even if our audience looks rather modest in size today or very familiar, the good news is this is being recorded, as I had mentioned before. So there is a potential for a much larger audience that may not be present in the room today, right? It will be made available through the library. It'll be archived there, searchable. It'll be also part of the library's YouTube channel. So many more people in the future will see what you have to say. So we are here with students from Com 101, which is a communications course, of course. And Com 101 is designed to introduce students to college-level writing, to help them develop their critical thinking skills, their critical reading skills, and to introduce them to research. So this semester, we took that as our opportunity to focus research on education. Now, education, being a part of the systems of education, institutions of education, is something that I think everybody in this room has been doing for most of their lives. When we are so immersed in something for so long, day in and day out, it starts to feel rather normal, right? And the normalcy of that sometimes results in the failure to think critically about these very things that we're a part of and these things that are affecting our lives. So with this course, we took it as our charge to examine more critically education. Part of that process involved something called deliberative dialogue. Deliberative dialogue is a way for small groups to come together and to talk about some difficult questions on this theme. The overarching question that students engaged with in small groups on this theme was this: how should higher education help us create the society we want? Of course, they broke that down and dove deeply into that question through research. They were asked to articulate clearly an ideal vision for our society and how higher education might play a role in that. They were also asked to think about the obstacles that might be getting in the way of that ideal vision for our society, and ultimately to consider some possible action steps towards making improvements or towards overcoming those obstacles. So that's the crux of what they were working on, and that's really what you're going to hear about today. The expectations, of course, are very high on students. I mean, to solve all the problems that are plaguing higher education, that's a tall order for a 17-week Com 101 course, right? But I think, so that may have felt unreasonable sometimes throughout the course of the semester, but I think it's also unreasonable to assume that this was nothing more than a classroom exercise, because it is more than that. One of the rules for deliberative dialogue is to listen for meaning, not for flaws. So every person has value in the authentic point of view that he or she brings to the conversation. While you might hear students struggling somewhat today with their understanding of the complicated issues affecting higher education and struggling sometimes perhaps with the complicated ideas for action, I challenge you to listen today not for flaws but for meaning. Listen to these students, listen to what they have to teach and what they have to learn still. And after these presentations, I hope that we can enter into some conversation together to have further dialogue. I did distribute this handout here, which is a list of questions that students themselves have submitted. They are asked to write a question, the answer to which might help make their path through higher education a little bit easier. So I tried to compile that list here, the spirit of all the questions represented in this handout, and perhaps also this might be the basis for some of our discussion afterwards. If we do run out of time and we don't have ample time to address some of these questions, I've also provided a link in the lower right-hand corner of this handout where you might, at a later time, provide some thoughts on the questions asked here, and then students would, of course, see those. Okay? So that's what we're doing today. Without further ado, and hopefully without too much popping from our speaker system here, we will begin with our first presenting group, Bailey et al. As a technical note, please speak into the mic because it's necessary for the recording.
1 2 1 2.
I say the first sentence, so I need the mic. So Barack Obama.
I was gonna do hand motions though. All right, good. Okay. Hi, my name is Michael.
I'm Bailey.
I'm Kendall.
I'm Eric.
What do you think you guys could do with $45,000? I'm sure plenty of things come to mind. A new car, a house, a yacht, anything. But I doubt paying for a college education isn't the first thing that comes to your mind. The average cost of tuition alone at Harvard University is about $43,000 every year. According to Harvard's website, the combined cost of tuition and fees is over $63,000 in total. In general, the baseline knowledge of college is that it's expensive. As kids, we're told that we have to go to college, no matter what. It's absolutely mandatory if you want to succeed as a person. Parents start saving up for their kids' educations as soon as they start to exist. According to bestcollegevalues.org, people who have a bachelor's degree earn $2 million, associates earn $1.5 million, and high school diplomas alone earn $1.2 million. That's a pretty big money difference, and so it makes sense as to why parents push so hard for their kids to go to college. Overall, college and money go hand in hand, which leads us to our first area of concern, the crazy cost of tuition.
So, as Bailey said, college costs a lot of money, but do we know exactly how much it costs on a wide scale? Well, in America, college debt consists of $1.3 trillion, not billion, but trillion. That's quite a bit of cash. You could do quite a lot of stuff with that money. So, why should education be placed behind a gate like that? Well, it shouldn't. So how can we solve that? The government should give us money for it. They should cut defense spending. So instead of bombing people in the Middle East, we could, get educations. However, it's not just, the government giving us money. There are also other alternative solutions to the high cost of college, such as, Michael,
Trades. Oh wait, I have the microphone here. Hold this. Trade schools and vocational schools, technical schools, whatever you want to call them, right? Higher education. You might think about just universities and colleges, but that's not it. The problem with tuition is that kids they don't mind going through debt and taking out these student loans until the end of college when they're burdened with them. Well, there's other options, cheaper schools, trade schools, or you could get, an associate degree in a skill or job training. And it's much different than your usual typical college or university. But think about it. You get home and you still have work to do from work. So, but trade schools and everything else. Okay, trade schools and technical jobs, all that good stuff. You come home, you can live your regular life, leave the job behind, and you're good. But that's the point of that.
Okay, another possibility is that the government should subsidize the school itself by paying for teachers' salaries and providing educational tools instead of making budget cuts towards the necessity of educational needs. Ideally, this should make school drop its price. School gets upgrades their faculty for their faculty for free and doesn't have to pay for their teachers as much because the government pays for the teachers, and schools get to keep that extra money and doesn't lower the tuition. So where is that money really going? There are many cheap alternatives to obtain cheaper education. There are many benefits such as loans, financial aids, and scholarships to help young students achieve these goals at a much cheaper price. There is also the option of cheaper education places such as community colleges. The best approach is to not rely on higher education, but it is to take matters into your own hands. To start, take advantage of all the money saving options that there are out there. Don't go broke just trying to get an education.
So to summarize, we discussed the current issues with higher education. In our case, mainly, the outrageous cost and the less talked about other options aside from four-year universities. We also discussed the solutions to these problems, such as government increased funding for schools and introducing other options for higher education, such as trade schools and apprenticeships. Hopefully, our solutions made you feel a positive outlook for the future of higher education. We made our voices heard, but now it's your turn. Speak out, make your voice heard. Thank you for your time.
You did really good, Bailey.
Thanks very much. All right, let's have our next group come on up.
Are we good to go? Okay. Hi, I'm Micah Hescott.
I'm Chris Drury.
My name is Daniel Hearn. And my name is John Walsh.
So today what we've come to talk about is the debt crisis in the U.S. and how we plan on resolving that. I'm going to start off with a quote. "College is part of the American dream. It shouldn't be a part of a financial nightmare." And that quote is by Barbara Michalewski, and she's a former state senator.
I also have a quote, and this was said by Thomas Frank, and he says, "For profit, higher education is today a booming industry feeding on the student loans needed out to the desperate."
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit of a story about debt. Okay, so back when I was in this ain't really college debt related, but it's still debt related. So back when I was in 6th grade, I was sadly stuck in the hospital for around 2.5 weeks due to I had surgery on my neck, and after finally being able to go back to school, it was tough trying to get back into the routine, and along with that, I also had so much work I owed to the school. So it was extremely tough. It was stressful. Because of all those absences, I wasn't able to get any of the classes I was able to do, But after a while, I managed to get help, and I tried to make sure I was just getting stuff done. And I was able to fix my problems, though it was really tough. So some of you may ask what this has to do with college debt. Well, I owed a lot to someone, and it was something I couldn't control. And though it was extremely hard, I managed to stay determined, get my problems dealt with, and I was able to continue my school as normal. But people with college debt feel the same way, as as it is very stressful to owe that much money. And if they get the help, and if we give them the help they need, they'll be able to hopefully solve their problem.
In Chris's story, he talked about how he felt like he wasn't in control. Well, that's how most students feel when they're in debt, because you're not in control unless you have the money right away. So our idea was to start a class that talks about and helps you figure out how to get out of student debt, because loans are, let's just put it this way, schools give you the amount of money they think you need, but you might need more. So the point of this class is to help out with how you're going to pay off these loans and just how you're going to do better with them.
So the main idea of the class would be how to properly take loans and how to properly pay them off, and everything that you need to know about taking out loans and what could go right and what could go wrong. Because no one wants to be $100,000 in debt after 4 years of college. So it's mainly just it would be like College 101. It would be another required class like that, but just everything that has to deal with college and money.
$1.3 trillion students loan debt. The average loan debt is 37,172 dollars, and the average salary of a 4-year college is $50,556.
44.2 million students are in debt in America, and there are 323.1 million people that live in America. So that means 13% of the nation is in debt because of student loans. One thing that they tell you in high school is, you get ready to go to college, so you have the access to college, and colleges look at it as, well, you're getting into college, and it's like you have access and then you're getting in. But what it should be is you have access, you're getting in, you want to get through, and you want to learn how to repay your loans. So that's our presentation.
All right, well, let's. Leah and group, come on up. Yeah, sure. Is it on? We're troubleshooting.
That's exactly what I'm trying to. Yeah. I think that's
So don't move your feet around so much.
shuffle, yeah. Touch your neighbor, not the microphone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like hold it at the bottom.
You'll be all right. Just don't shuffle your feet. I think that's the issue.
I want to go in the middle. All right, hi guys, I'm Leah.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Rocco.
Oh, I just want a mic. So no one really plans or really aims to go to community college. It's kind of just seen as an extension of high school. Everyone, wants to live out the college dream and go away and all that. But some people just aren't good at school. Not to say that they're not smart, but, whether they don't have the motivation to go to class, they don't do their homework, they learn slower than their peers, or, they don't like their teacher's style of teaching. If they were to go away to a big school, they'd have so much more independence and they would get even more distracted from school. So staying home seems like the best option. So it hurts a lot less if you were to do bad in a class and you're paying $4,000 a year rather than paying $40,000 a year. Moraine Valley, they have 26 different communities that it encompasses, almost 400,000 people that have the access to this school. And there's even people that go here from schools even farther away. I had 2 kids in my math class that literally lived downtown Chicago in the city and would travel the 45 minutes every day because Moraine is such a good school. And 28 to 40% of students at some point are enrolled in a remedial class. Moraine actually prioritizes student success, whether it's school or whether it's their career that they're going to go into, and they spend $12.9 million on the academic support here and $9.4 million on student services. So they obviously have the money to allocate towards remedial classes and making them better, because there's this huge stigma around them that they're for, not as smart people because it doesn't count for any credit and that they're high school level and all that stuff.
So according to Community College Research Center, a little background on that, they were organized in 1996, and what they do is they assess problems of community colleges in order to increase the success rate of the students. They found that in one college system, between 40 and 50% of students placed in remedial classes could have earned at least a C or higher in college level courses, and in the English category, 40% to 65% of students could have earned a C or higher in college level courses. And what this shows is that because of the perceived notion that these students already feel like they're less than, because of the stigma that they're not going to do well because these classes that they're in aren't college level. A joint statement that I found called Core Principles for Transforming Remedial Education. This was written by the Charles A. Dana Center. This is a research unit in the University of Texas at Austin, and they focus on making sure every student leaves prepared for success in post-secondary education. And then also Complete College America helped with this, and they were organized in 2009, and it's a national nonprofit organization. Also, Education Commission of the States, which was organized in 1965. It's a nonpartisan nonprofit. It involves key leaders from all levels of education systems, like policymakers and education leaders. They create jobs or create opportunities to build partnerships with other colleges to make the system better success for students. And then last, which helped with this joint statement, was Jobs for the Future, which helps lead students from college readiness to career advancements for those that struggle in today's economy. And a very strong point in their piece was that we need to focus more on prerequisites instead of prerequisites. So what that means is taking a class while taking another class. So those go hand in hand. You have to take them together. It's, for example, like you take a math class, you have another math class that's like mandatory 5 minutes until and understand. This priority in our high school level courses, and K-12, because that is when most of the problems stem and where they come from, and that's when students start feeling like they're less than because the courses come in. But if we prerequisites required, then the success rate will go up.
Most students believe there are problems in our school system, but do not know where to begin to go about these problems. One way some students went about the problem was an organization called Student Life. Student Life started off as a group of friends who came together whose main goal was to revolutionize education through the voices and actions of students. This group started off as a group of friends with an idea and is now a nonprofit organization with important educational people to back them up. A good idea the Student Voice came up with is an event they call Student Voice Live, where hundreds of students and academic advisors come together about the problems in our school systems. If students came together, they could talk about a big problem that is in the educational system today, being ending the stigma of remedial classes. What students have is they jump into college right away just because that's what they're taught to do after high school, and they're not fully ready for the transition from high school level classes to college level ones. Remedial classes are they won't even only time like Student Voice. I believe we can really get our voices heard and actually begin to change the
Welcome everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Ashley. I'm Rafaela.
And I'm Caitlin. We're here today to introduce our thoughts on higher education and how we can positively impact our society in furthering their education. Change starts with us, and we can no longer sit back and watch our future generations deteriorate. We need to keep the love of education alive. This does not have to be a drastic change overnight. We can start in our community and expand. We can create the future we aspire to live. Our goal is to show others that education does not have to be a chore, but a hobby as well. If we really look into ourselves and find our true passions, we will have that motivation to keep learning and to pursue higher education. I hope to connect with the world and experience life in other people's shoes. I want to learn about the human brain and why we act the way that we do. My goal is to use my knowledge to educate others and bring us together as a human race.
And I hope that people realize that going to college is a great opportunity to enrich your life, but some people do take it for granted. Regardless if you go to a 4-year or even like a community college, people will either take it seriously and actually work for it, or they will take it as a binge drinking marathon because they just don't care because they believe that they are forced to be here by their parents or someone else.
Some obstacles that are stopping us from creating the society are society's point of view of college. A lot of high schools tend to focus only on college acceptance, but not college success. They tell us that we need to apply to all these bigger colleges. For example, my high school made us apply to at least 10 colleges, but they did not inform us or help us figure out what classes we should take, and they did not inform us on the actual cost. So many students do not end up finishing because the cost is so high. Others need to be open-minded and be willing to make that change in themselves and in their community to inspire others to continue in their education.
Some other obstacles include people just not being ready for college, because college isn't going to hold your hand kind of like how high school did. And you also can't keep blaming other people just because, I didn't get that paper done or that homework. You need to take responsibility for your own actions. And really, it's your job, and it's really all up to you.
People need to communicate with people. We do not know how to communicate anymore because of technology. We need to connect with individuals to see how the world works. This would help people network and find more ways to get jobs. The networking process is a thing many people lack. This is all just communication. Communication skills can be gained with just experience alone. We see how individuals act and we act with it. This is the way individuals grow. We are social beings. We need to keep communicating with everyone and everything. So there's this study that attempts to answer the question, can a required service learning experience of limited intensity and duration have an impact on the development of college students as participating citizens of their community? Thomas Plant and Catherine Hallman observed, they're both in the psychology field, they observed students who took a 1-credit community service laboratory. The students showed a significant increase in their belief that people can make a difference, that they should be involved in the community. They wanted to perform volunteering the next semester. They also became less likely to blame society service clients for their misfortunes and more likely to stress a need for equal opportunity. The students indicated that their experience had led them to more positive perceptions of the people they worked with. So basically, we wanted to say that maybe Moraine Valley should offer community service laboratory or even community service before they enroll to show that they could give back to the community, and they are part of the community, and they have a voice.
A big problem in our area specifically is that many students who are very well off try to take advantage of financial aid, but those who have the money to pay for their own college can just do that and let those who are less fortunate take the financial aid money and scholarship money that is still unclaimed. We can apply for scholarships, but we really need to make that decision ourselves and take responsibility. And we need to do our research and to create more opportunities for us to give back to the community, to get a bigger sense of responsibility, and to widen our communication skills. This could be something small that you can do on your own. For example, providing homeless people with food, blankets, helping with animals. Just little things that can change your mind. By doing these things, you can be a better human being. Thank you.
Alrighty, my name is Charlie.
I'm Courtney.
All right, so what our focus is going to be on today is not going to be like student debt or pretty much any of the same stuff that you guys have been talking about. It's going to be more about getting a job right out of college. Okay, so I got a question for everybody first. Who here has a degree or is seeking a degree, just in general? Anybody? Want a degree, has a degree, and everybody. Most hands are up. Okay, so that's our point here. Everybody's looking for a degree or has a degree. Some of the stuff that we're trying to focus on is getting kind of like a job certificate or going to school for like a specific job. Courtney, take it over from here.
The only downside for having a degree is low unemployment rates, global market competitiveness, high job satisfaction, and low personal debt. If you get a degree, sometimes it can be very wide ranged. If you want a job, go to school for that job, so you are prepared like when you come out and you're ready for like the real world. For example, I'm going to school for nursing, so like I want to be at school learning for nursing, not like all this other stuff. So that way, like when I go to a 4-year college, I'll be prepared for like internships or like other offers.
All right. So off of what she said, I have kind of 3 main points that I would like to address. One of the points is taking classes that don't help with the field that you're going towards. So that's just one point that I'd like to make about like if you're taking a class and it's really not gonna directly impact what your job is, or it's like, I mean, it could be a requirement, but we kind of want to change that requirement in a way. Like if it's not gonna help you, why really take it? Obviously, another thing we like to focus on is there's 3 main things that are like, these 3 points are working against society. There's no point. There's no reason for these. Another one is student debt. You guys have obviously talked about that. It's a big issue, and I don't think you guys really want to hear more about student debt, so I'll move on. Not enough focus in the STEM field. It's very, in a way, underrated, and I wouldn't say not appreciated, but it's very underlooked, and it slips under the radar. I think it should be much more like highly attended. So now kind of I've told you guys what we wanted, like our idea was about getting job specific and all that stuff. Now how? That's why am I just going to talk about all that stuff and not give you guys a reason. So now solving for the problem. We want to obviously take those classes that you don't need to take, like just don't take them at all. Like just don't make them a requirement. Make everything like almost a little bit less, but make it more job specific. Now, everybody's talking about student debt, ways to fix it. you guys have made great ways in like government and getting money and grants, all that stuff. There's plenty ways to change that. But if you start taking away classes that you don't need to take, that's going to lower the cost of your education. So if there's like 10 classes, 5 classes that you don't need to take, it's a lot of money for Harvard. You don't need to take, that's a lot of money that you're not spending. It's just you're not spending it, and it's not going to hurt you. And also, and if there's classes that like, let's say like Com 101, that like it's required and everything, that's been like that for a long time, or other classes that you need to take, move those to high school if in a certain way. I mean, high school stinks. Some of these required classes stink. Make it go in one. Like, get it done so when you come out of high school, college, couple years, 2-3 years, not 4 or 5 years, you're done. Boom, job, let's go, money. That's what we're all here for. And so that's pretty much what my my point was. And I mean, I know I looked into, there's a construction management thing that I was wanting to do. I looked into it from Moraine here. They don't offer it, and there's not a lot of places that do. There's a couple like colleges that offer a good construction management program around here. It's a 2-year program, and there's the South Suburban. But if you ask around and you look for job certificates, it's a couple years, a couple required classes from other things. Moraine has a couple classes for certain job certificates, but they don't offer it. But some of the basic classes they actually do offer here, and they offer you in district tuition, even if you go to a different school, but you would pay Moraine's in district. So that's just kind of some of the points that we wanted to make about getting job specific in the world, because everything else is just kind of working against society. Anything else?
Thanks. All right, Dawn and group. Are we still just using the one mic then? Yeah. Yeah. So much, appreciate it. Now you all have the power of Mr. Microphone. There you go.
Present yourself.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
To start off, I'm John.
I'm Nancy.
I'm Ferris.
And I'm Dawn.
And we would like to thank you all for showing up here, for all those who could, because I'm noticing a few missing faces. We want to convey a message of why higher education is difficult to get to. Because we go through basically many years of high school. Some people barely learn anything. And since in high school they have tier systems usually, it feels like you've learned less than what you would normally learn. We hope that the problems that we're going to be giving with the solutions will perpetuate colleges and high schools to give better education standpoints. All the issues that we're going to be saying, none of them are new. We've all heard them before. But we hope bringing light to them will spark a flame that'll create an even bigger fire underneath the schools to have them continue and be expanding further. One of the first few things is affordability. Not everyone can afford college. Hell, even some people can't afford high school. But they still want to learn. So, if they can't afford it, what are they going to do? We have to change this. This has to be something for everybody. If they want to learn how to do whatever they like, anything they want to do, we should allow it. What would our nation be if we gave up our hopes and dreams? Just threw it out the window. How would we grow? What would we become?
So our hope for this society is to promote a positive atmosphere, one where it's safe to be ourselves, to not be discriminated nor hear racial slurs. Being remotely conscious of our physical and mental health when going into these institutions is a key factor into maintaining a well path into our lives. This hope will be applied fairly and equally to those who are willing to continue their education and pursue a degree to help to improve among themselves and the economy. As the group works forward towards our own education, we hope to apply our knowledge, skills, and confidence into a better economy, better society. If we achieve having higher education, we run a better risk of helping those who were struggling to afford or go to school be able to worry less and be more focused in their education. Because if you ask me, I'm very sure we want the students to be very focused and engaged with their studies more than anything because they are the key to a better society. However, we do have obstacles that intervene with our hopes.
All right. When students, transition from high school to college, they usually look for a good college with low tuition. Nobody wants to go to, a decent college that has, extremely high or expensive tuition. Some students do want to go to, universities that specialize in certain areas, so, they have to, take out student loans to, help them pay for college. So research done by, Natasha Quadlin and Daniel Udell show that students that take out these student loans receive a lot of stress. And there's two ways that these students usually deal with the stress. The first way is that these students, they go headfirst into the education and try to get good grades and study a lot, and that's a good thing. And they get as good grades as they can. But they on the downside they lack a social life because they're not going out, they're just staying in and studying. The second group usually they don't study as much because they're the pressure and stress is too much for them, and so they start partying and going to parties and trying to have as much fun as they can and make college a good experience. Both of these ways negatively impact social life and the grades, so it's not really a good way to go through college. So we have to come up with a solution that so students don't think college is a bigger risk than it is a reward.
We try to come up with a couple solutions to solve the problem of the cost of higher education. And while we understand the colleges, the big four-year colleges, need to invest their money in technology, new buildings, and equipment to teach the new innovative technology, we were thinking that maybe they could hold off for that and all that expansion and maybe reinvest into the students. Maybe offer either lower tuitions or discount rates for maybe students who are excelling in their classes, maybe for the following semester, give them a break on their costs. Or maybe even offer more scholarships. Spread that money out in a different way instead of expanding on the buildings and facilities and equipment that they already have. Another thing that we read about was in an article in the Washington Post by a gentleman named Jeffrey Salingo. He proposed that colleges should put up front the cost to the students, make it available for them to see their four-year tuition plan so that they can then decide whether college is really going to be worth it for them. Given the price up front, they can make that decision, see if it's feasible, something that they feel that they can do, or maybe just give them the thought of, well, I need to refocus my attention and get specific classes that I need to reach my goal rather than spending money on classes that really won't get me in that direction. It's been a long time since I've been in school, and since I've been out of high school, and my fellow classmates informed me that there also needs to be a change at the high school level. While students are informed of some options of student or financial aid, student loans, and scholarships, they're really not given in-depth information on how to fill out those forms, where these items are available to them as far as scholarships, and all too often scholarships are left unclaimed on the table. We're hoping that maybe some way someone in the college, maybe a community college, can go to the local high schools and help them set up a program where they can have a workshop with the students and inform them of all their decisions. We want them to help maybe have these students go into college, not in such a great financial debt, but have a plan of action in place. We don't have all the answers to the problems, but we're hoping that maybe by spreading some of the ideas that we do have, someone here may expand on them or share them with others, and then we can ensure that this debt crisis will hopefully come to a resolution. Thank you all for your time.
Okay, we have got one speaker left. Osama going solo here, so.
Hello, my name is Osama Mohana, and I'm a full-time student here at Moraine. Throughout the course of COM 101, we learned about the values of education and the role it plays in our daily lives. But, of course, this does come with a cost. According to MarketWatch.com, the United States has accumulated more than $1.2 trillion in student debt as of January of 2016. Now, we're not denying that education isn't important in our life, because without higher education, where would we get all the doctors and engineers working to make our society better? But when it comes to pointing fingers, who's to blame for this crisis? Well, contrary to what most of my colleagues are saying, I do believe that the fault does lie mostly in the students' hands and not necessarily in the government's hands. Because, for a number of different reasons. Well, for instance, I do believe students aren't taking advantage of community colleges as they should. According to College View, tuition at a two-year school costs around $2,500. But as for a public four-year institution, it jumps up to around $15,000. However, for a private four-year institution, the number jumps up even higher to $35,000. Well, I do see why some students are not taking advantage of community colleges, and that's because they believe it's meant for below-average students that need to take the time in order to catch up with the rest of the students. But that is far from the truth, because classes here at Moraine, for instance, they're provided at equivalent difficulty to classes provided at a major university, say UIC. In 2011, 43% of all undergraduates were enrolled in a community college. It also has to do with poor financial decisions early on. During high school, I understand students have high hopes and don't really consider the cost, but many of them go out of state and choose to go to a private university when they do not necessarily belong to a very wealthy family. And also, students don't do a good job at researching opportunities for their major. So they could go to school for 8 years, get a PhD, but in the end, if your job won't reward you with the salary you think you're going to get, then you just won't be able to pay off your student loans, and you will have a problem in the long run. And what's the point of studying something if the job market isn't doing well? Well, you simply wouldn't find a job and wouldn't be able to pay it off. However, things are being done in order to assist students by the government. Well, for instance, not too long ago, I graduated from Carl Sandburg High School, and while there, they provided us with classes such as career planning and consumer economics to help us plan out our future and help us get an education at a cost-effective method. But I do understand not a lot of them are provided at most schools, and I do believe that should be increased. But the government does provide scholarships. But it does take hard work in order to benefit from a scholarship. So working hard during high school in order to achieve high grades and get lower tuition fees will benefit you in the long run. More than $2.7 billion from in scholarships were awarded to 1.8 million students since the year 1958, according to usnews.com. Yet another option exists, and that is to enlist in the Army. Now, I know that's very challenging, but I actually heard about this from my chemistry professor, who was actually a veteran, and he didn't necessarily grow up rich, and he was actually raised by a single parent, but he managed to go to the prestigious university at Loyola and pay off his and the Army paid for his tuition. So as you can see, maybe we shouldn't always point fingers at the government and actually see what we can do within ourselves before we see what anybody else can do for us. Thank you.
Okay, just to make sure everybody went, right? All right, very good. So, thank you. We had a lot of ideas come out here, a lot of issues being raised, some possible steps towards improvements, and also some questions. So, let's take a few moments now, because we do have time, to open it up for some discussion. For anybody who would like to comment, to provide further insight on these issues, or ask questions of any of the presenters, or maybe provide some answers. Awesome.
You guys back there, you guys killed it. Your guys' I'm sorry, I don't remember your guys' ideas, but you guys, it was perfect, spot on. I wish I would have thought of something like that, because it was so, like, they deserve a good. You didn't like it?
I just thought it was confusing that it killed it, but you can't remember them.
Well, sorry, I have a horrible memory, but I remember you guys talked about how we should take like classes like College 101 in high school, which is a great idea, because it's basically like we're learning. It's the same thing over again. I did all my writing in senior year, and I'm doing a bunch of writing freshman year at college. That was brilliant. A, they deserve an A.
All right, thank you.
Brilliant. I love theirs.
Thank you. Others, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm not in your class. I am the art gallery coordinator here at Moraine Valley, and I'm also a UIC graduate student in museum and exhibition studies. So I'm in this world of student debt and the conversations that come out of it, and then how museums can be used as another way of education and furthering education. So I have a comment for y'all too, or I don't know, some ideas. Yeah. So I can give you some background, so I'm not just this stranger talking about my education. I grew up in Philly. Pennsylvania has a really high in-state tuition, so it was cheaper for me to go out of state. So I went to Charleston, South Carolina, and got my degree at College of Charleston, which is a state school there. And then in historic preservation and community planning, another one of those things that's like, what do you do with that degree, which I hear all the time. But now I work in arts administration. So I got my degree, so it's this question of, is college directly for this idea of working for a job-specific thing, or is it like this exchanging of ideas? Which brings me to this idea of job-specific classes, because even though I understand that it's great to like have these classes that are really en route, and I have this in grad school, like they're super specific and I can talk about what I want to talk about and share my ideas, and you're with a group of people that's like that, and that's like very important in undergrad. It's also, I feel like it was like so important for me to think about other things that maybe I wasn't exposed to. But there's definitely this line where, yeah, these like 101 classes should be in high schools. But also it would be tricky to take these out, because you're like eliminating this idea to have these conversations and start like communicating about things that are different. But I get it too. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying too about like, I can use this. Full power. Yeah, true. Yeah, I understand like what you're saying about like having like a wide variety is good too, because what if you change something? Like what if you change like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. That's the only degree you have something for, and you're stuck. I see that too, but sometimes when people see something, they want it, and they know they want it, go for it, be specific. That's just kind of what I was going at, but yeah. I like your input. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's definitely also one more thing. It definitely also speaks to this idea of like getting the experience really early and like going out to like, even though internships are unpaid and it's really annoying, having those kinds of work in the field also will really help you in this job-specific classes you want to take and figuring out that way rather than just taking a whole bunch of classes, random classes.
I don't know if I actually add this in my presentation, but it reminds me what you just said. Some of the stuff that I don't even think I did mention this. I should have. When you like going for job specific stuff, the end of your getting your certificate or your degree or whatever you're doing should be, the college should be linked with places that are close, like companies of whatever you're going into should be linked with getting jobs. Like you should be working for a company for like 3 to 4 months at the end of while you're getting your certificate. So right away, the company knows your work ethic. They know who you are. You've been there. You've been on time. You've shown them that you've been good. You get out of college, the first day you're hired. That's what I think. I mean, at least in my mind, that's what I think should happen at the end after you're trained and you're certified for everything that you need to be doing. I don't know if I added that.
And that exists, right? In co-ops, there's like specific universities, but it's usually for STEM programs, but it should be extended to like arts management.
Exactly. That's what that's why I said in my presentation STEM is underlooked, and that's why I did add that in there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Do others want to weigh in on this? I think what we're getting at here is really a pretty kind of a divisive idea of what, the broadest question of our theme this course is what are the aims of education? I mean, is it to train one for the workforce and get them working and get them paid as soon as possible? Are there other aims that are different from that, perhaps? Some might argue bigger than that. Anybody want to weigh in on that, or we could take it a different direction?
So my name is Susan. I'm a returning adult student here. This is my last year. I'm a political science major, and I get asked that question all the time. What are you going to do with that? I did do an internship and a summer later paid, by the way, and I got a job, so a part-time job in my field already. So I do think that students can get jobs in their field and look for those jobs. Sometimes it's in nonprofits, but I did want to address, and I think, like you said, it's a fundamental divide of what education is, right? And I understand you say, like, why am I taking all these classes? And I'll tell you, when I took, so I hadn't been in school in 35 years, so when I took my 098 class of math, I'm like, what the hell am I going to ever use this for, right? So then I get to my biology class, and what do they have for the genetic equation was a quadratic equation. I'm like, oh my God, somebody's sabotaging me here. Like, there's math and biology, but I think that it's all interconnected education, so that we think that those classes don't matter in the long run, but they do expand your mind to different avenues of thinking and idea exchanging. I do venture to say that maybe as far as certificates, I think they're really important. The only problem that I have with the certificate is not whether you change your mind, is whether that job will be available, whether that job is there not at the end. So maybe you work a few years, and I think this has happened across America for the blue collar worker. They were very skilled in what they were doing. They had good paying jobs. They really built the middle class, and then those jobs were gone because we automated. So then it takes us on to the conversation of STEM, right? So if you're going into something like that, you have to do STEM. But I'd also venture to say that that's a constant education, because STEM is not something that you just have that education and you're here. You're going to have to constantly be going to school. So then if we're looking at long-term, like how much this cost is to that cost, really, is there not a balance of that? Because you're going to constantly be taking courses. And I would say you're almost yearly, because, STEM is constantly changing. We'll have new technology every single year that's out there. So I think that, I do think that there are people who take advantage of school and who do not realize the importance of it. But I don't think a society should be hurt because they're the few, just as there are the few in any group, that kind of ruin it for everybody else. Education is really a valuable thing, right? And it's become increasingly unaffordable. And because we've divested in its weight, what it means. So we're divesting as a society into public education. I think that we should definitely offer the STEM courses, and if there's a need for construction, if there's a big need for that, we should definitely be looking at those certificates. But we also can't devalue the biology class or the thing. As far as myself, I'm a political science major, but I've learned so much about the world around me. It was like, wow, you're like this whole world that somebody else knew about that I didn't know anything about, you know? And I don't know, I think it's an interesting conversation, and one that has validity on both sides, but I really, it worries me that it's, you know, that we're as a society, we are not valuing education, or teachers for that matter, of what they provide, the status of what somebody who's giving you that knowledge is. It's a constant battle, and I worry about the future of that we're just become clones for the job market. Rather than people who can contribute to society, people who can critically think, all the important things that come with a college education.
Thank you for your comments. There's some hands over there.
Yeah.
I have another mic. I'll get around. We'll go here first, and then I'll maybe it's a direct scholarship.
I just want to add that in college, by taking classes that are specifically for what we want to do, I believe that in a way that will push us to want to learn more outside of what our passion is. So by, for example, how we were saying, by doing community service, and by just getting involved in your community, you make more connections, and you learn about other people's passions, and learn about each other, and kind of educate each other in a way too. So
like social education is what you're kind of talking about,
yeah.
through each other?
Yeah, and like for example, if someone is like an art major and let's say they need help in math, by making connections, you can ask your math major friend to help you out, and that way we're literally learning from each other through communication and not just from a teacher or from a book. And personally, me learning from someone else is more effective to me, and I'll remember it more if I learn from someone else who I know is passionate about that and they know what they're talking about.
Well, based off what you said, can't argue. You speak from experience, you know? I mean, this is my, first semester, so who knows, my opinion can completely change after I go through my however many years of school I'm going to go through. So I appreciate what you said.
I think it's a good point, what you're
Yeah,
saying, right?
I mean, you gotta
because
have
school
experience.
takes so long to get through, and you're trying to get out there to make a buck, right? I do think it's a valid point. I just don't know if it balances. I don't know in the end if it's worth pushing through students to get a certificate. From the experiences I've seen with the families that were middle class, that were able to buy a home in America on blue-collar jobs, on trained, skilled jobs, right? And that has dissipated, and so now we're seeing the ghost towns out there because now they're a little too old to retrain. You can retrain them, retrain people can retrain, but, you know, that there's a lot of that. That's what my worry is. With nursing, I think you guys will be fine, you know, because people just continue to get sick, and, you know, the more we work, the sicker we're getting. But I think in the medical field, there are certain fields that might not have as much, even though they're automating to the point of, I don't know if you guys heard, it's like 700,000 jobs will be automated like in the next five years. So although, like, for instance, with, you know, that rhetoric of bring our jobs back to America, it was really only 20% of jobs that were overseas. It is 80% of jobs that automated here. And that's why people were really unemployed. And that's not something that'll go back. So even if we changed kind of our politics, we bring companies, we give them the tax breaks, we still have 80% of jobs that automate it, and we will continue to automate it because if we're trying to get the highest profit, that just makes sense. So I worry about the future of education. I don't think so much maybe for everybody in this room because we're there and all these things are being discussed, but I would say a generation or two, I'm a little concerned as to the affordability. I don't know if recently you guys saw that the masters, the graduate degrees, they put some legislation in the tax bills where no longer will that graduate degree, like if you're working, you know how some people get a tuition waiver, I work 20 hours, I have a tuition waiver. Well, now they're going to try and tax that. So I'm really worried about the future for students and their education and the ability to have access to that education.
Well, I mean, yeah, you make perfect points. Just one thing, 35 years come back to school, I give you a lot of credit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I give you guys a lot of credit for continuing on. When I was growing up, I'll be honest with you, why we didn't go to school, we kind of had that thought. You can kind of go into the corporate world and you can start off as a receptionist and you can work your way up to executive secretary, and you could do that. No longer is that viable. I mean, you cannot go into the littlest things need degrees. So they're expecting a degree, a certificate at least, to do customer service, something I did my whole life. I left the workforce to raise my kids in '88. I made $11.50 an hour. I re-entered the workforce in 2003 and made $9 for the same job. So imagine, my rent then was $475. My rent in 2003 was $900. So the difference, I really am concerned that as we devalue education, that our options to a brighter future will be very limited.
Thank you for that. Others want to weigh in. We've got a great conversation going here. All right, we got to, and hold on to the mic.
Okay. Well, I have a question for the Bailey's group about when you said about like the government should pay for your school. Now, I'm not quite so sure how that might work because, if you actually allow government to sort of pay for you, it might be kind of a loan shark type of deal, be a slave, if I could just be so, in a joking kind of manner. But some parts, it kind of seems a bit odd to ask for something that people usually are not sure about, to ask for, to pay. I understand where your concerns are because they fund for most of our wars that many of us don't really know don't know if we really want to go for. But my point is that what's your reason? What was your reason why you think the government should fund our education, even though this might end up being a loan shark type of deal?
Well, our kind of main point is less so of the government should pay for us individually, and it's more of a widespread thing. So it should be Eric kind of touched on it a little bit. He didn't go too in depth, but basically saying that, we should be, the government should give not students more funds for college, but colleges themselves more funds, just funding the schools more so that tuition doesn't cost as much. I remember briefly we touched on it in College 101 that the cost of tuition has to go up so much because the cost of living goes up, the cost of everything goes up as time evolves, but yet colleges are not getting increased funding from the government. Their government funding is not going up as it should be with everything else. They're decreasing it. Budget cuts are a very real and very serious thing that are happening to colleges, and it's not only colleges, it's high schools, it's everything. The education funds are getting cut more and more every day to go into other things such as our defense budget and other things like that. So money is being taken away from schools and put into other things. Therefore, tuition has to be higher because running a college is expensive. So it's less of like we need money like students individually, more so colleges themselves as a whole need more money. I hope I answered your question.
All right, that seems to answer my question. I just wanted to make sure. Oh, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that what I was hearing was what you guys really believed, or you know, or whatever. Just wondering. All right, thank you.
Does anybody want to respond to, I hear this notion of government needs to do more, government needs to pay for things, and when I hear that, I'm not exactly sure what that means, I mean, like, what do we do about that if we feel... Yeah. You got idea?
I mean, I don't really have an idea about that, but like it was all over the news about all those. As soon as Trump came in, not blaming Trump, but as soon as he came into a presidency, all the budget cuts that were being made towards colleges. So that's the issue. Why are you making budget cuts?
I think we need to look at state level as well, particularly with state colleges and universities.
I think one of the main ways to make change happen is to talk about it. I'm like a very big advocate for speaking your mind and saying things, and like one of my biggest moral things is you'll never, always if you regret something or if you get yourself into a bad situation, always have the peace of mind that you said what you thought, that you portrayed your thoughts how you should have. So I think the biggest way to make change start to happen, get the ball rolling, is to just talk about it. If we think that the government should, give more money to schools, to say in like a very elementary way, give us more money for school. It should be a talked about thing. Make petitions, make Facebook posts about it, talk about it, do stuff like this where, there's open talks about stuff all the time where at colleges or libraries, they do all kinds of things where people just sit around and talk about problems. So I think one of the biggest ways to start something individually on like a small scale is to just talk about it.
Thanks. I think part of the challenge we all face, and I know we're up against the clock here, but I think part of the challenge many face is understanding how to affect that kind of change. When we say the government, I think sometimes we forget that in a democratic society we are part of our government, government of, for, by the people, that kind of thing. And just real quick, if I can, connect to the group that was talking, or a couple groups I think mentioned the importance of civic education, more opportunities for service learning and that sort of thing, engaging with community. I think that is part of what is lacking, understanding how to affect change, having the civic skills. I think many of us, quite frankly, don't know how to affect our legislators, don't understand that we have representatives who will listen to us, who will act on our what we have to say to them, and so forth. So, a shameless plug, if I may, I know this may be inappropriate, but my COM 102, a research writing class, utilizes service learning as its major pedagogical method, meaning it's designed to help develop civic skills such that you can affect change where you see it needs to happen, okay? So I think that's something we all need to attend to within ourselves, myself included. I have to know how to do this better in our community so that we can realize the changes that we seek. All right, I know we're out of time, but I wanted to thank everybody for coming today, participating, having the courage to come up here and talk in front of an audience and in front of a camera. So have a great day.